Hey, greetings everyone. Good evening. Lieutenant Colonel Allen West here, gubernatorial candidate here in the great state of Texas. I guess you can tell by the hat that I'm wearing what I want to discuss tonight. Back in 1979, when I was a senior in high school and then entering the University of Tennessee as a freshman, the Soviet Union invaded a country called Afghanistan. If you had told me in 1979 that, well, in 2005, I will be landing in Kabul International Airport in June actually of that year. And I would spend the next 2.5 years of my life in a country called Afghanistan, working with and helping to train and develop the Afghan National Army down in, well, you see right here, Kandahar, Afghanistan. I was proud of that mission because I knew that it was from there in 2001, just 4 years earlier, that we had seen the Taliban, a very brutal, savage, barbaric Islamic terrorist organization, invite in Al-Qaeda and give them safe harbor and give them a haven, from which they launched the Pearl Harbor attack of our generation on September the 11th of 2001, which we're about to celebrate and remember the 20th anniversary of that horrific attack. And so in the time that I spent there, working with the Afghanistan National Army, we did everything we could down in the southern Afghanistan region to make sure that they were able to be trained and to be able to stand up there and conduct operations alongside with the NATO allies. In Kandahar, we had U.S. Special Forces. Some other countries provided special forces. We primarily had Canadians in Kandahar. In Zabul province, we had Romanians. In Uruzgan province, we had the Dutch from the Netherlands. And then over in Helmand province, which was the fertile hotbed of the opium trade, we had the British. But we came together and we kept the Taliban from being able to firmly reestablish themselves there in Kandahar, which was their spiritual homeland, their spiritual province, their base. Well, this past Saturday, the city that I spent, Kandahar Airfield, where I was positioned, fell to the Taliban this past Saturday. People ask me, what do I remember the most about my time in service to the United States of America in uniform? Even though I was a civilian military advisor, I still had to wear a military uniform. I still had to maintain the same grooming standards and what have you. So you couldn't tell a real difference. I remember watching little girls going to school in Afghanistan, something that they were not able to do previously. I remember seeing women, first time, being able to drive themselves in their own car, go out and about without having a male chaperone or family member, and not wearing a burqa. Sure, they still had the head covering, but they wore their own clothes. And I remember seeing women owning small businesses, women's clothing stores and things of this nature. I even remember the first time I saw a woman that was a member of the Afghanistan National Police. But in the twinkling of an eye, those freedoms that those women had received just been snatched away. You know, I've been reading some of the reports, not, the mainstream media stuff, because the mainstream media, if you saw a post that I put out today, MSNBC put an article saying that Republicans really don't stand for women's rights. They're just trying to jump on a bandwagon with this whole thing in Afghanistan. Because see, to the left, what is defined by women's rights is murdering a baby in the womb. No, we're talking about real women's rights, liberty and freedom. And it's funny how we don't hear any of these feminists or any of these other individuals that, the squad, where are their voices? Nancy Pelosi, Maxine Waters, Oprah Winfrey. We don't hear anything from them. But this is what is happening already in Afghanistan. And I called and talked to one of my former interpreter translators this past Monday, who we were able to get out of Afghanistan about 4 or 5 years ago. I was able to get 3 of my former interpreter translators out of Afghanistan. They're living great lives here. One of them lives in my birthplace of Atlanta, Georgia, another up in Buffalo, New York, another in Manhattan, New York. But the one who told me that it's already happening, the checkpoints are out, the Taliban is going door to door, They have the list. They know all the people that work with the American forces. They even know some of the people that served in the Afghan military. Well, the horrific thing that is happening, and I've read some reports that validated it from other sources, like BBC, Reuters, whatever. The Taliban is actually going around, and they're looking for unmarried women. They're looking for young girls. And they're going in and saying that these women now have to be married off as the slaves to their Taliban fighters. And when some of those women refuse, they're being hung right on the site. Absolutely. They're being lynched. There's already been a report of a woman that was shot because she didn't have a burqa when she was walking around outside. That's how fast they have lost liberty and freedom. When you think about September 11th, we will never forget those images of Americans jumping from those towers, choosing to fall to their death instead of being burned alive. Think about the images that we just saw coming out of Afghanistan, where people were grabbing onto aircraft that they were taking off because they would have rather fallen to their death knowing that they were not going to be able to hang onto that aircraft, rather than go back to what they remembered, living under the tyrannical rule of a savage, barbaric, Islamic jihadist organization called the Taliban, who's going to institute Sharia law. And the Taliban said that yes, there will be women's rights, but women's rights within Sharia law, which means that they don't have any rights. But that's exactly what Joe Biden made the decision to abdicate, to take away from these women, from these people. Now we can sit around and have this argument about, well, we've been there for too long. Well, how long have we been in Germany or Japan or Korea? We don't have to have a large military footprint and presence in Afghanistan, but we just needed to have enough of a presence that kept Afghanistan from becoming what is now about to become once again a haven and safe harbor for militant Islamic jihadist terrorist groups. The Taliban is already releasing those Al-Qaeda fighters out of the prisons. The Haqqani network, the next home for ISIS. It was George Santayana who said in 1928, a Spanish political philosopher, that those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Winston Churchill also said the same thing. We're repeating history. Not too far ago, not too long ago, it was the Obama-Biden administration when Barack Obama made the unilateral decision that we would withdraw all of our troops out of Iraq, create a void, create a vacuum. And who fulfilled that vacuum? It was the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, ISIS. And we remember those images. We remember the brutal actions, the killings, the beheadings. Do you even remember when James Foley, the American journalist, was beheaded by ISIS? And, well, Barack Obama showed up, gave a little halfway speech, and then he went back out to play golf. Kind of like Joe Biden flying in from Camp David to give a little blame everybody else speech, and then get back on the helicopter and go back to Camp David. That's the lack of care and concern that we see from these progressive socialists. And having served in the military for almost 25 years, who would have ever come up with the insane idea of withdrawing all of your military footprint, leaving all of your military equipment, an air base like Bagram, abandoning it, and now you want to try to evacuate American citizens and non-combatants? See, Bagram Air Base was absolutely secure. Bagram Air Base was out away from any major urban population center. At Bagram Air Base. But now, our soldiers and Marines are trapped at at Kabul Airport. And there's only one main road that gets into Kabul Airport, and it's already been cut off by the Taliban. They're surrounded by the Taliban there. And now, these United States of America are negotiating with an Islamic terrorist organization to allow flights to come in to evacuate our personnel. How did we get to this point? How did we get in this situation? Because for whatever reason, we didn't think logically in the last election cycle. We had not heard anything about the Taliban. We had not heard anything about ISIS. We had not really heard anything about Islamic jihadists and terrorists. The general that was in charge of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Force, General Soleimani, gone. The man that was head of ISIS, al-Baghdadi, gone, even though the left tried to romanticize both of those individuals. ISIS decimated. But now all of a sudden, because of a strategic blunder, we have turned Afghanistan over to the exact same people that brought and wrought destruction and devastation against us. And think about this. During the Obama administration, remember that little exchange? There was Bo Bergdahl, the guy that was a deserter, and Susan Rice, who said that he served honorably. No, he didn't. But we exchanged Bo Bergdahl, a deserter, for 5 senior members of the Taliban, 5 Taliban generals. They were supposed to stay there in Qatar, and they were not supposed to have anything to do with Islamic terrorism or terrorist organizations, but there they sat, right there when we went into negotiations with the Taliban. And now those exact same 5 generals are right back in Afghanistan, where our brave special operations forces and our men and women in combat extricated them from that battlefield. And let me say this to the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines that served there in Afghanistan. Let me say that to all of the Americans, civilian military advisors, police advisors that served in Afghanistan. You have nothing to be ashamed of. You should hold your heads up very high. You should go out and get your hats that you bought or your t-shirts or whatever that shows that you were there in Operation Enduring Freedom. Because we did what our country asked us to do. But once again, just the same as with the Vietnam generation, it's the politicians. And oh, by the way, if you want to study history, go back and see that there was a young senator from Delaware who also was part of the fateful withdrawal out of the fall of Saigon. His name was Joe Biden. History does repeat itself. If you continue to perpetuate and allow inside baseball career politicians, people that have no idea about foreign policy and national security policy, to be in positions of authority and leadership in the United States of America. So where do we go from here? Well, I can tell you right now, you know what's going to happen on September 11th, the 20th anniversary, the remembrance of 9/11. The Taliban is going to do something to completely embarrass the United States of America on the international stage. I don't know if they're going to demolish the embassy or what it will be, but they will do something to embarrass us. They will do something to inspire the next generation of little wannabe jihadi fighters, the same ones that wanted to go to Raqqa, Syria, or go to northern Iraq and fight with ISIS, who've been looking for a place to go hang out. Now they have a place to go hang out. It's called Afghanistan. And they probably will try to do something very sensational also to inspire them, to show that the United States of America is in moral decline, that they defeated us just the same as they defeated the lesser Satan, as they called the Soviet Union, and now they have taken on and defeated the greater Satan. You know, the Taliban had a saying over there, that you may have watches, but we have the time. And they show that we don't have the will and resolve to defeat them. So therefore they feel emboldened, they feel empowered. And here in the state of Texas, let me tell you something. The last thing that we need here in the state of Texas is a 1,254-mile border that is wide open. Because it's not just the strategic and national security blunder of Joe Biden in Afghanistan, it's the unconstitutional open borders policy that he has implemented here in the United States of America. And when you have these transnational criminal, narco-criminal terrorist organizations that we call the cartels, they're willing to work with anybody as long as they're paying them money. And we have already seen individuals that are on the terrorist watch list from Yemen, from Syria, try to infiltrate into the United States of America. When you have 210,000 in 1 month apprehensions, not deportations, apprehensions of illegal immigrants, when you have 38,000 in 1 month, July, that are what they call getaways, we need to be very concerned about what could happen here in the state of Texas and also what could happen in the United States of America. And that's why I'm running for governor, because someone has to stand up here in the state of Texas and protect and secure the sovereignty of the state of Texas, which also means we're protecting the sovereignty and the security of the United States of America. Texas cannot be the welcoming mat for criminal terrorist organizations, MS-13, Hezbollah, or who knows what could come across that border. West Texas Representative Congressman August Pfluger has a piece of legislation addressing the 232 tunnels that come from Mexico into the state of Texas and across the border. 232 tunnels. They're not digging looking for coal, nor gold, but they're looking at means and ways by which they can get into the United States of America and wreak havoc and destruction against us. We already have border communities that are terrorized, afraid to go out at night, afraid to have their children go out. And all of this is coming to head in just the last 7 months, since January, the end of January, when Joe Biden took an oath to the Constitution. I wish he had told us right then and there on Inauguration Day that he didn't give a damn about the Constitution. That he and the rest of his progressive socialist leftist cronies, they don't care about the sovereignty of the United States of America. They don't care about enabling, aiding, and abetting criminal terrorist organizations or Islamic terrorist organizations. They don't care about our energy independence, our oil and natural gas, but yet they'll be happy to go and beg OPEC nations to increase their production so that we can become more dependent upon them. What we're looking at right now is a complete and utter debacle. And I hope that some of you people out there that pull the lever for the Biden-Harris ticket, I just hope somewhere in your heart you're finding some semblance of remorse. You may have hated Donald Trump. I got it. You hated the guy because you were told every single day, 24/7, 365, Orange Man bad. But with Orange Man, we had a secure border. With Orange Man, we didn't have the threat of militant Islamic jihadism and fascism. But now, they're emboldened. Russia is emboldened. If you're in the Ukraine, you got to be nervous. China is emboldened. If you're in Taiwan, you got to be nervous. Iran is emboldened. If you're Israel, you got to be nervous. But if we're here in the United States of America, we need to be very concerned. Now, what do I think happens going forward? I don't know how Joe Biden stays in office. I don't know how we can continue to believe that this blithering individual, with the utter incompetence that we are seeing, can continue on for the next 3 years to be the leader of the free world, to be the leader of these United States of America, because he is bringing about a wholesale decline of our constitutional republic. When Joe Biden said that America is back, you got to be kidding me. Because under Joe Biden, America does not have any spine. And I got to tell you something. You got to be even more concerned, because if it's not Joe Biden, it's Kamala Harris, the person that couldn't even get 1% polling in the Democrat presidential primary, that dropped out before the very first primary contest. The quote-unquote border czar that did a drive-by through El Paso on the way to California. Nah. Politically, we may be watching the implosion of the Democrat Party. Now, that doesn't mean that the Republican Party is ready to step up and do what is necessary, because we just had 19 Republican senators that voted alongside with this horrible infrastructure bill. But we need to have strong constitutional conservatives. We need to have individuals that understand peace through strength. We need to have individuals that stand up for the rule of law. We need to have individuals that are willing to confront the enemies of the United States of America. And again, Texas, we're on the forefront. We share this border with a failed state that is controlled by, again, narco-criminal terrorist organizations, these cartels. We cannot continue to allow the drug trafficking, the human trafficking, the sex trafficking, the public health crisis that we see to continue on going forward. And hopefully, we will not become victims of another major terrorist attack. So where do we go from here? We've got to get serious about America. We've got to get serious about Texas. We've got to get serious about protecting ourselves. Because if not, maybe we are in a sense of decline. But I don't think so. I think that good, strong patriots and conservatives will stand up. And I even think that there are people that voted on the Democrat Party side that are awakening. You don't want to be a progressive socialist. You don't want to align yourself with secular humanists. You don't believe in all of this cultural Marxism and this critical race theory. You don't believe that we should be dependent upon foreign countries who hate us for our energy resources. You believe in a strong America. We believe in a strong Texas. But it's requiring of you, it's important and based upon you to make the right decisions for elected officials, leaders going forward. What has happened in Afghanistan did not need to happen. And what leaders really do is they tell people, they tell the folks that they're in charge of, they've been giving command to lead, they tell them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. And having 2,500 troops in Afghanistan to work side by side with Afghan forces, to provide them the intelligence, to provide them the air cover, just so we don't have to worry about another thing going kaboom in the United States of America. That's what we have an Army, an Air Force, a Navy, and a Marine Corps for. But instead, we have seen a military and this failed civilian and upper echelon military leadership that's more so concerned about critical race theory and teaching our men and women in uniform to hate each other. For one group to be the oppressor and to be evil, and the other group to be oppressed and to be a victim, rather than developing a cohesive fighting force. And telling this guy who sits and calls himself President of the United States of America that it's really dumb to shut down and abandon an air base and then try to go back in and extricate Americans who are now completely surrounded. And you know what's even worse? The fact that this Biden administration is begging the Taliban to allow us to land airplanes in so that we can evacuate Americans. 20 years after we were struck in the Pearl Harbor of our generation, 9/11, we're begging the same people that were responsible for the deaths of over 3,000 Americans, countless others wounded, we're begging them not to slaughter Americans once again. They have a saying that says, never forget, when you talk about the Holocaust. I thought that we would never forget what happened on September 11th of 2001. Some people have. And therefore, the honor and the character of these United States of America is in jeopardy. With that being said, what are your questions? Our president is accused by Biden administration of idiots. I agree. There is no other way that I can comprehend what has happened. And when I listened to the president step up there, old Joe, and he blamed everybody else except for himself. And when he said he stands by his decision, well, that woman that was killed because she wasn't wearing a burqa, you're responsible for that, Joe Biden. Those women that are being lynched in their homes because they don't want to be Taliban brides, you're responsible for that. The young man that was shot down in Kandahar on his motorbike because he had an Afghanistan flag on his motorbike, you're responsible for that. I hope you can sleep well at night, but you shouldn't be able to. Let's see. Let's see. How do you feel about mandated vaccines? Michael Morrison. Let's use the language of the left. My body, my choice. You don't mandate people to take vaccines. And the thing is this, why would you mandate people to take a vaccine and then you have them sign paperwork that says that they will not hold anyone responsible, accountable, or liable for forcing them to take the vaccine? If you want someone to take a vaccine, then you accept the responsibility for whatever happens because they took that vaccine. We cannot have this bifurcated society in the United States of America of people that have had a vaccine and people that have not had a vaccine. And think about what is happening in some cities. Think about what it just came down in New York City. That restaurants are supposed to check people for whether or not they've been vaccinated, or they have to show a negative COVID test. So in other words, this is what is happening in the United States of America, and it's really kind of tyrannical. It's almost like the Taliban saying that you must wear a burqa or you have to dress this way or what have you. We're asking people to show papers in the United States of America. That's how it starts. That's how it happens. Because progressive socialists, Marxist, communist, statists, they're the same. No matter what language they speak, they're the same. It's all about totalitarianism. It's all about tyrannical control. Why aren't we recommending people to go out there and be proactive about their health care? Why aren't we recommending people to go and make sure that they're taking care of themselves? And why aren't we, saying, watch your blood pressure, your diabetes, or these type of things? Why aren't we saying that, opening up these other protocols like hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin? Why aren't we recommending people to take zinc tablets every day? That's what I do. I try to watch what I eat. I work out. I take zinc tablets. I take some immune tablets that I put into my water. Now, I will tell you in a heartbeat, I love Whataburger. I love Five Guys. But I'm not going to eat it every day. But why aren't we talking about those preventative measures instead of telling people you must take a vaccine? And now Joe Biden shows up and says 8 months after you get the shot, the jab, now you got to take a booster. Man, these pharmaceutical companies are making money hand over foot. When you have a government that's trying to force Americans to take an experimental drug. Maybe instead of mandating that our men and women in uniform have to take this shot, you should have been sitting down and wargaming out what happens going forward in Afghanistan. You know what's the other funny thing about old Joe Biden? All of those other policies that President Trump had, especially the policies that kept us safe on our border. And why all of a sudden, this policy here in Afghanistan, well, I had to do it because we were in an agreement with the Taliban. The difference with President Trump and that agreement, which I'm really not too hot and warmed over about, because I don't believe that you go into agreements with lying, savage, barbaric bastards like the Taliban. But here's the bottom line. At least President Trump had conditions-based operations in that agreement. Not just, here's the date, we're out of here, which is what old Joe did. So that's the difference between the two. This doctor uses CDC's own stats to dispel the COVID and vaccines. Absolutely. I mean, there's a whole lot of information out there. When people talk about follow the science, but also follow the money. And not just follow the money, but follow the lies. The CDC, if you really dig down and look at a lot of these statistics that are out there, you got to question yourself, why are we doing this to ourselves? Why are we shutting down businesses? Why are we going back to mandating the mask? If you don't want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, you should not have to wear a mask. We're supposed to be governed, not ruled over by edicts, mandates, orders, and decrees. That's the important thing about our freedom. But who would have ever thought that in the United States of America, we would hear people talking about show me your papers. But that's where we are. Impeach Biden and Harris. Mike Schillinger, yeah, But do you think Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are going to impeach Biden and Harris? But I think Republicans should bring up articles of impeachment. They should make that an issue. Because these two individuals have completely failed us in just 7 short months. I know people saying that 2022 midterm elections coming around, but think about the damage that these two individuals can do. Now, imagine if this was Donald Trump in office and you saw this complete debacle like what we have in Afghanistan. What would the mainstream media be saying? They're trying to do everything they possibly can to save Joe Biden, but I think they're starting to realize there ain't no saving Joe on this. Because even though they try to censor the information that is coming out from Afghanistan, you're going to have BBC, you're going to have Reuters, you're going to have other international news media that's out there. And the other things that you got the Taliban that loves the propaganda. And they're going to show people what they're doing. Number one, to embarrass America. Number two, to inspire other little jihadis to come to Afghanistan. This is going to be worse than the killing fields of Pol Pot. It has already started. So stay tuned. Not teaching real history is why we are here. Absolutely right. They don't teach this real history. And that's why it's so important that we get out there and we have good, strong constitutional conservatives running for school board. The most important elected position out there. We got to run for our state boards of education. I am so proud of you all to see parents that are standing up and they're showing up in these school board meetings. 2 years ago, that wasn't the case. We got a lot of catching up to do because we kind of gave the left a 30 to 40 year head start when it comes to academia. But we got to run fast and we got to close that gap. And I know that we can do it. Where did the flu go? It just vanished. COVID is the new name for the flu. You know, I asked someone that when I was on one of the talk shows over at The Blaze, that we don't talk about the flu. I mean, you know, and the flu shot. We never mandated the flu shot. The flu shot was optional. So why all of a sudden are we mandating shots in the United States of America? Tells you something, doesn't it? Show me your papers. Kamala is in way over her head. Absolutely. Madeline Martin hit the nail on the head. Thank you for your time and service to the country. It's my pleasure. But again, we've got to come together. I am mandated to wear a mask. I didn't see the word. We need to kick the government out of our school systems. We need to just make sure that we have the right type of people at the state and the local level that are supervising our school systems. You know, it's really amazing to me that even here in the state of Texas, we have a Republican governor, a Republican lieutenant governor, a Republican Speaker of the House. We control the Texas State House and the State Senate. We couldn't get school choice passed in Texas. What does that tell you? Those aren't constitutional conservatives. Don't know what they are. Mandatory for health care flu is unfortunately. You know, I'll be speaking at a rally with some medical professionals this weekend up in McKinney, Texas this Saturday. I don't understand why we are mandating our medical professionals or anybody, any business. Why are we mandating people to take a shot? If people want to wear a mask, they should wear a mask, and they should wear that KN95 mask. And from what I understand, you have to change it out every 3 hours, or else it's worthless. But people in our hospitals are wearing masks anyhow, and if they do come up positive, guess what? They stay at home, so they're not endangering anybody. But again, in these hospitals, I think it was Houston Methodist where you had 117 that were fired because they would not take a shot. If those hospitals are saying you must take the shot, then those hospitals need to make themselves liable, responsible, and accountable for anything that happens to individuals after they take those shots. And I'll share with you the personal experiences that we had in our family with our 2 daughters who are in the medical field. Both were told they had to take shots. They're young, 28, 24. They don't want to lose their jobs or anything like that. They're not like their old hard-head dad. And both of them had severe reactions. Oldest daughter collapsed in church on Palm Sunday, suffered Bell's palsy and very bad tremors in her right hand for about a week. The other had an incredible, our youngest daughter had hives and welts break out all over her body. I'm not happy about that. All right, we're going to end up with no nurses or doctors if they're mandated. It's about to get real bad. Yeah, and guess what is also happening down in McAllen, Texas, on our border? I saw the report, and I shared it with you all and put out a press release about 80% of the hospital beds down there, illegal immigrants with COVID. That's where your spike's coming from. McAllen, Laredo, and El Paso. But yet, we're pushing them on further into Texas and all across the United States of America. It's a public health crisis that Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and their open borders policy has also started. Let's see, government was not as infected back then. Okay, what's the next one? I'm trying to read as fast as I possibly can. What is your a 39-year-old daughter had a heart attack after Moderna. I'm sure there are many stories out there, Terry Peterson, and that's not be the case. Thank you. I enjoyed dinner with you too, John. The crooked voting system. Well, one of the things, excuse me, Marco Rubio moment. We have got to make sure that we have honest and fair elections, and I support HB 26 here in the state of Texas. Representative Steve Toth out of Montgomery County area. This would bring an audit about for the top 13 counties here in the state of Texas, population-wise counties in the state of Texas, because we need to start peeling the onion back. And again, we still have these Texas State House Democrats that are not showing up so we can have a quorum, so we can get to the business of making sure we do have honest and fair elections. What they want to do is undermine the electoral system here in the state of Texas. They want to undermine the electoral system in the United States of America. There is no doubt about the coincidence, there's not a coincidence, I'm sorry, but there's no doubt about an open borders policy at the same time when you're trying to push H.R. 1, which says no picture ID to vote, universal mail-in ballots, no voter registration roll review, online voter registration, same-day voter registration, same-day voting. We can't have that. So no. I saw your book at a gun range. Awesome. And continue to go out to the gun range. It's not FDA approved. No. When will someone be held accountable? That's what we got to try to do, John. But it's just the same as with the Durham report. Did anyone ever see a Durham report? See, if we continue to allow the left to do all of these things that undermine our nation, this republic, put our lives and our safety and security in jeopardy, if there are never any consequences for it, then they will just continue to do it over and over again. And that has to stop. All right, a couple more. Do you support forensic audits, not just regular audits? And that's what I just talked about. I think that's what HB 26 here in the Texas State House is all about. Those forensic audits from the 2020 election for the top 13 counties here in the state of Texas, and I do support that. Let's see, what else we got going on? Does the government track who gets the vaccine? I wouldn't not be surprised if they didn't. And that should be a big concern for you. That's why I'm just not into that whole thing about gun registration, because that's what they want. And every single totalitarian, socialist, Marxist, communist, statist regime got started first and foremost by eliminating private gun ownership. So be very careful about the things that they, universal background checks and all of this stuff. That's just a means by which they can get more information and more data. Every single person has to undergo a 4473 background check. And once you pass a 4473 background check, that's your weapon. The Constitution is your permit. And that's why constitutional carry was so important to get passed here in Texas. Wish you were governor here in North Carolina, Kathy Kuiper. Hey, Kathy, let me tell you something. You got a great lieutenant governor there in North Carolina, a good friend of mine by the name of Mark Robinson. So let's get him in the governor's mansion as soon as possible because he's going to be a good one. Let's see. I see lots of, okay, I'm sorry. What is your response to people asking why you're running against the incumbent in your own party, Jacobia Cartwright? Well, Jacobia Cartwright, I didn't know that you were entitled to an elected position. See, that's the great thing about the United States of America. We believe that people should have choices, and that means that people should have choices for elected positions. And there are many things that I feel that the governor of the current governor of the state of Texas is not doing very right. So guess what? That's why you have primaries, so that you can challenge people, so that folks can get the opportunity to choose who do they want to go into the arena and do the battle for them. So Jacoby Cartwright, unless you are some communist socialist status and you don't believe that we, the American people and the people here in Texas, should have choices in elections, that's why I'm running in this primary to be the next governor of the state of Texas. Let's see, a couple more. Let's see. Parliament, I couldn't see that. I got religious. Oh, my DIL got religious exemption. I was so proud of her. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I talked to my pastor at church, and he has done several letters giving a religious exemption for people so they don't have to take the vaccine. And when did we get to that point? That we have individuals that are trying to force people, especially as a condition of employment. What kind of country are we becoming? I mean, these woke fascist corporations that are out there, it's very disturbing. That's not America. That's not the America that we fought for. And we don't want to be on that path. Okay, I knew the answer. Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Cartwright, I didn't see it. Diana, Alan, we need to get a drink together. We kick over some same dirt. Hey, the thing is that I have never drank in my life nor smoked, but I'd be happy to go out with you and either get some sweet tea or lemonade, or even better, an Arnold Palmer. How many people out there like Arnold Palmer? With sweet tea, Arnold Palmer with lemonade, not the other thing, because unsweet tea is just brown water, and I don't like brown water. Okay. How does a non-elected politicized organization like the CDC hold so much power? They shouldn't hold any power. But the thing is that if we don't understand that they are just a government agency, that they cannot make policy, then the next thing you know, they're telling people that, they don't have to pay rent, which we already know is unconstitutional. We can't have the government believing that they're the ultimate property owners or renters out there in the United States of America. There are a lot of things that we have seen happen in these past 7 months that should cause us all grave concern. All right. Last question. Everybody likes Arnold Palmer. Awesome. We really need help with all the private businesses and hospitals forcing their employees to take the jab and lose their jobs. We need to have leadership in our respective states that will not support businesses or hospitals forcing people to take a shot, and also sign away their ability to hold anyone liable, accountable, and responsible. If you're telling someone to do something, then you're responsible for that to happen. Just the same as Joe Biden is responsible for every single thing we will see happen in Afghanistan. And I pray, I really do pray, that America does not suffer a terrorist attack. But if a terrorist attack does come, it's because of Joe Biden. And we should not be surprised, because think about all the terrorist attacks that we had to experience when it was Barack Obama. So God bless you all. God bless Texas. And sometime tonight, if you could just take a minute, pray for the people there in Afghanistan. Pray for the women. Pray for the little girls. Pray for those little girls that I saw go to school, but now have had that freedom, that liberty, and an opportunity snatched away from them because of a dithering, blithering idiot that we elected to be president. Good night, y'all.